You're listening to MicroPROgressions, FIT Writing and Speaking Studio tutors on thinking and thriving. Hi, I'm William. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm a senior film student at FIT, and I'm a writing tutor at the Writing and Speaking Studio.
Hi, I'm Deepti. I'm an illustrator. I also work as a writing tutor at the Writing and Speaking Studio. I'm also a teacher, or rather a teaching artist, and my pronouns are she and her.
So Deepti, how are you feeling today?
I'm good. I'm a little sleepy because I stayed up late last night trying to finish a client project.
Oh, dang.
But otherwise, I feel mostly woken up, so that's not so bad.
Yeah, Monday vibes.
Mm-hmm.
So today we have a very special guest in that you are one of our professional tutors at the Writing Speaking Studio. But more than that, you're also an FIT alum. Just for starters, can you tell us more about your current profession? You mentioned that you're a teaching artist.
Yeah, I work as an illustrator and a teaching artist. So I work at the Children's Museum of the Arts as a teaching artist. It's just basically teaching kids how to make art, which is really fun, Mm-hmm. I love doing that. It was, of course, more fun before the pandemic because you could interact with kids on site. It was more productive, I think, because kids are not as, they like Zoom, but they tend to be more distracted on Zoom.
Yeah.
And I feel like it just works more naturally when you're working with them because then you can see what they're working on, you can respond to it. But on Zoom, I can't really see what they're working on. So that isn't as fun. But apart from that, I am an illustrator. I love drawing, silly objects, animals, characters. I really like drawing hand lettering and food. It's like a big mix of things. But and I think my goal here to some extent in the US is to work in the children's book industry, but also a lot of other things, like maybe have my patterns on products and other objects. So we'll see how far I get on that front. Yeah.
So what got you into illustrating and stuff like that?
I've made art and basically all my life, but I actually studied architecture as my undergrad. And it was like a 5-year long program, and somewhere I think halfway through it, I discovered that I couldn't really see myself practicing architecture. I wanted to do something creative still, but this wasn't quite, what I wanted to do. But I figured, I would graduate and then figure out what to do after that. Because at least I'd have a degree, under my belt. And I graduated. I was just, I guess, seeking something else, but I didn't know what yet. And I was getting gradually more interested in illustration because I was looking at other illustrators' work, but I couldn't really imagine myself doing it for whatever reason, It's until you actually see yourself do it, you don't think you can do it. And then by chance, a friend of mine connected me with somebody she's related to who is an illustrator, and she was looking for somebody to help her out. So she got me started and, helped me feel it out. And she's like, why don't you try illustrating something? And I did it once or twice, and I was like, oh, I could do this. I'm good at this. So that's kind of where it started. And then I started working in India, and then at some point felt like I needed to up my skill levels, which is when I applied to the MFA at FIT.
I'm also curious about how you came into contact with the writing and speaking studio. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about how you started working there and how you felt throughout your time as a tutor?
I will say that was one of the highlights of my time at FIT. And when I applied, I think I was just looking for a job on campus, right? And I was also looking at the academic skills tutoring center and trying to find things there that I could tutor. And then I think I somehow found out about the writing studio and I applied because I was like, yeah, I can write decently well. I could tutor that, it was really just that much. But then, and I didn't know the depth of what I was walking into, right? Because I don't think any of us do when we join as writing or speaking tutors. And so I just applied and I gave my interview and I made it through and I started working. but I had no idea how much it would change me or, the choices I've made in my life. I think because of the writing studio, I realized that I really love to teach. I don't think I would be a teaching artist or like a teacher of any kind necessarily without the writing studio, or I would have reached there later in life, right? So that was a big part of it. And also just there's so much you learn at the writing studio just because you meet so many other people, and there's so much you learn about literacy and language and communication, and it's made me a much more, kind and understanding person, and just somebody who sees the world a little more differently and more openly.
Yeah.
So I think it really changes you when you work at the writing studio, which it was not anything. I didn't expect any of that. I just walked in needing a job and did not expect that to be what would happen with my life.
And I mean, same here, honestly. I remember during my interview, like, I focused so much on just like, like proper grammar and stuff like that. What does that even mean nowadays, Because like, I feel like that's the first like way of thinking that's thrown out the window as soon as you start working there.
For sure. I used to be this, because I was always a nerd somewhat about just language and grammar and syntax and all of that, right? And so I was definitely that person who thought that I thought grammar was more important than it really is. What's more important is that we just communicate when we need to. But I think it really helped me change that perspective and see things as, look at what somebody's trying to communicate essentially rather than all these rules and conventions that are just there so that we can use them as tools. They're not the end all and be all of writing or any other type of communication.
Did your role as an illustrator and just as a student affect the way that you thought as a tutor as well?
I've always really loved storytelling, and storytelling is a big part of even just my drawings. I want to be able to tell a narrative effectively. So I think maybe that's what carries through the most, is just helping somebody convey their story most effectively.
Definitely. As a filmmaker, I feel a very similar way as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really about the end product, but it's more about how you get there and just helping the students figure that all out, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure. And we all have to figure out as creatives just how to effectively do what we do, whatever your medium is. Mm-hmm. So, and we could all use more help doing that, and it's helpful when we reach out. It's good to remember that. I think we all forget. I feel like COVID has made us all more understanding, right? I feel like people have become a little kinder, but I hope that stays, because we have to understand, right? If somebody's video conferencing is not working, their Wi-Fi is not working, you don't have a choice. You just have to be kinder. So hopefully people are less judgmental going forward.
So I'm glad that working at the studio opened up your passion for teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to ask how that translated into you now being a teaching artist for children. Were there any practices from the studio or any insight you gained from there that you still use today and still think about?
I think so. I think a huge part of it is just respecting every person or every child's voice, right? I think that's a big part of something I carry through, is because even at the studio, where it's all about respecting somebody's form of communication or voice and how they choose to do it. And it's the same with children who are learning to make art. They all have their own styles, but they just need encouragement to bring it out of them. And so I think I would say mainly that, but I'm sure there's many other things too. But that's definitely a core thing that I've carried out of the studio with me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of MicroPROgressions, FIT Writing and Speaking Studio Tutors on Thinking and Thriving. If you're a student at the Fashion Institute of Technology, we offer one-on-one consultations with writing and speaking tutors to help you develop and present your ideas, written or spoken.
You can schedule online appointments at fit.mywconline.com. That's fit.mywconline.com. And find us on Instagram at FIT Write Speak.
Thanks for listening and tune in next time.